The first time I was in hospital was a suicide attempt. A nurse at the hospital asked me how often I drink and how much do I drink. I can't remember what I said, but I know I lied. And then the second I said it, I realised that means I have a problem. Instead of managing my emotions or learning how to deal with my life, I just used alcohol instead. That was definitely the lowest point I'd had, for sure. After I quit drinking, I sat down and I had my journal out, and I ended up writing a really long list of hobbies that I wanted to try. One of them was pottery. I made something every day for probably about 6 months. I can have something in my head and my hands can push it into place and make it exist. It's like a way of completely switching off. It changed my daily routine, which then goes on to sort of just changing your life. You can be in a really, really dark place, and sometimes the simple things actually can really help. Creating is, there's nothing like it.
Welcome to another episode of Pott'd, and today we have a special treat for you. I'm joined by a very special person. Her name is Nadine.
Hi.
So Nadine, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, excited. And in front of us, we've got a few of Nadine's creations that she's made along the way through her journey, and actually some of these are going to come into the story that we talk about. So Nadine, just give me the story and how you got into pottery in the first place.
I've always been a very creative kid. Ever since I was, I'm probably 4 or something like that, I've always been making stuff. Then I think when I became a teenager, you kind of lose a little bit of that. And then when I went to university, I just completely lost it all. I wasn't doing anything creative. Probably January-ish last year, I went through a really, really bad mental health sort of dip. I started painting because I knew that, I had that creativity inside me somewhere. So I started painting and I was like, okay, this is fine, but it's not exciting enough. And then one of my friends had air dry clay at home because she makes fairy houses, and she invited me over to make things out of air dry clay, and I made this little cactus thing, and that was it. I was obsessed. From that moment onwards, I went home the very next day. I bought my own air dry clay, and for the next 5 or 6 months, I literally made something every single day. I was waking up before work, making things out of clay, making things painting things after work, everything like that. And then, yeah, it's been about a year and I'm still completely obsessed with it. And I started doing TikTok lives and things like that to try and get other people involved, because it genuinely helped my mental health so much. It was not just a case of filling that time that I had free now. It was putting my energy into something creative and doing something with my hands and disconnecting from the day. It helped me so much. So I just wanted to find other people online that could benefit from the same thing as well. So yeah, that's how I got into it, I guess.
If you want to go into a bit more detail, what was going on in your life before this hobby?
So before I started doing creative stuff with air dry clay, I'd had a rough couple of years, to be honest. I was living in Cardiff when COVID hit. Then I had a very long-term relationship breakdown, and then I moved back home, and I literally just had 3 or 4 years of complete struggle. I was really, really suffering. And then things started getting better. I got my job in marketing that I still work at the moment, and things were looking better. And then I moved to London, and I think even though that move to London was great, and it still is the best decision I've made, it all just kind of hit me the last 4 years with the pandemic, with the breakdown of an old relationship, the new relationship starting. I'd moved house about 5 or 6 times in 2 years. It was a lot. And then I finally settled into this flat in London, and I really loved it. And I'd made new friends here, very, very creative friends in London. But I kind of just felt not myself. I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't have anything at all that felt like my own thing. I was sort of just working, clocking off from work, going to the pub with friends, and that was it, the day.
Yeah. I think you mentioned to me before, it was kind of your hobby, I guess a habit, was kind of based around socializing, but maybe less healthy versions of socializing, like drinks.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that, I mean, it's in in British culture, I think, to be honest. Like, I didn't have the energy to then have the motivation to do anything better. Yeah, it was a bad habit, and I think even if you don't have a problem with alcohol, like cutting down and replacing that with fun hobbies is such a good way of improving your life.
Do you think that like drinking became like the big problem for you or not? Was it just like a bad habit, or did it get a bit worse than that?
It was a problem, like for sure. Like I grew up with people drinking on the weekends, people drinking on the weekdays. And because I'd learnt that, I didn't really see a problem with it. It was only when I kind of became independent and when I was in my mid-20s that, you know, I'd finish a really stressful day at work and I'd go and buy a bottle of wine, and my boyfriend would be like, "What? I'm not having a beer. Like, why are you drinking?" And I'd be like, "Why wouldn't I drink? Like, I've had a really stressful day." And then I realised that I didn't have any control. So I wasn't drinking like very regularly, but I definitely had a problem in terms of using it as a coping mechanism. And if I'd had a stressful week at work, I would go out that weekend with friends and get absolutely like obliterated, and I just didn't have the self-control. I think because I didn't have anything else going on, it sounds really bad, but it was the best thing in my life. Like, it was the most fun thing I had. I was very, very shy for pretty much my whole life, and the only way I could socialize was if I'd like lowered my inhibitions by getting a little bit drunk or way too drunk. It was just the way I used it rather than like the volume or the amount I had. So yeah, it was so dark. I'd completely used that like to deal with my emotions, to deal with my depression. It was an outlet for everything, like any problems, even good things. It was a way of celebrating as well. So it just, instead of managing my emotions or learning how to deal with my life, I just used alcohol instead.
Yeah, it's a really nice kind of helpful way to describe it, I think. I think it's quite relatable to a lot of people. And it sounds like from your story, you're saying like it kind of things are reaching a bit of a climax or like a kind of inflection point or something.
Completely.
Tell us a bit more about that couple of months that you mentioned.
I had like a complete mental breakdown. Like, I was struggling. I was sort of just working, and then I would finish work and just want to go to bed. And then on the weekends I would be drinking, and I started, my drinking became really, really bad. Like, I was drinking to the point where I'd start arguments with my boyfriend, and that was completely unfair on him. And then I was creating this horrible environment at home. I was sort of self-sabotaging because basically like I'd spent so long trying to change my life and get out of the bad situation I was in, and I'd managed it. Like, I'd got a really good job and I'd moved to London with my boyfriend who I loved so much. I'd made amazing friends, and then I finally got to this point and I thought I didn't belong. I didn't deserve any of it. So I was basically like self-sabotaging completely. I was drinking recklessly. I was isolating myself as well, and I ended up in the hospital a couple of times actually because of it. And then at one point, a nurse at the hospital asked me how often I drink and how much do I drink. And I said, I can't remember what I said, but I know I lied. I said something like only once a week, or only maybe like 3 drinks per time that I drink. And then the second I said it, I realized like that means I have a problem, because if you're not honest about it, if you have to lie, if you don't feel confident in what you're doing, it means that you're doing something wrong. My sister and her boyfriend came and picked me up, and they drove me back down to my mum. I have 3 sisters, and my mum was there, and they sat and they had an intervention with me. But by that point, I'd already decided what I was going to do. I already knew, like, I need to change my life. Like, I decided to quit drinking. That was the 12th of February 2023. So it's been a year and a couple of months since then. I'd been in and out of therapy for a few years, but I, properly went for it this time.
Thank you so much for being so open with us. The thing about in the hospital, it's a great kind of insight.
Yeah.
When you're not being honest about this thing, then there's a clue.
Yeah, definitely. Even like, it doesn't even have to be in terms of like, you know, if you have an addiction but you know, when people are asking, are you okay? If you're calling in sick to work and pretending that you're physically sick when really it's like mentally sick. If you find yourself like constantly being dishonest to other people about what's going on inside, that is a surefire way to know that like you need to change something, and you need to be honest with yourself.
What caused you to end up in the hospital those couple of times? Is it alcohol or was it anything else?
So basically the first time I was in hospital was a suicide attempt. Like I don't even remember feeling that bad like in the weeks leading up to it, but I just woke up one day and decided like that was it. Like my life was so great at that point. I was never going to be happy. Like if I couldn't be happy with what I had, then there was no point. That was definitely like the lowest point I'd had for sure.
Oh. Sorry to make you repeat it.
It's fine.
Yeah, but it's just like, it is really like, and like I do think there's a lot of power in sharing our dark moments.
I completely agree. Like this is the thing, I see a lot of people on social media do post about mental health, and that's great, and like I think normalizing it is so great, but there's a lot of what some people call toxic positivity, where it's like if you feel depressed, then you know, go for a walk, and if you feel anxious, then I don't know, just like do some breathing exercises in your head. But yeah, I also started like sharing my journey on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. If somebody hears what I have to say and it helps them, or even they can just relate to it a little bit, then it's kind of worth it. And that's really helped as well, because it's just sort of like having a community online to kind of hold myself accountable for. But it shows that like you can be in a really, really dark place, and sometimes the simple things actually can really help. It's not to say that, you know, doing arts and crafts is going to save you from like the darkest place you're ever going to be in. And if you are struggling with mental health, obviously you should seek help. A lot of mental health recovery is intense, and you know, I'm on medication myself, and a lot of people are, and therapy can be really draining, and sometimes you need extra fun things on top of that, otherwise it's all just too much, it's all a bit heavy.
Yeah, sometimes the best cure is to just do something enjoyable.
Yeah, take your mind off of it. You don't need to sit and like journal all your darkest thoughts all of the time. You can, you know, make yourself relax, make yourself do something fun.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's a balance, right?
Yeah, always.
Because then if you're kind of spending too much time with the darkness, that can be like a rumination.
Yeah.
And it can feel like you're getting more into it.
Even when you're trying to help yourself out of it, it's not the best to just focus on that and nothing else.
And at the same time, if some people might need a bit of introspection and to like sit with the feelings.
Yeah.
If it depends where you are on the spectrum, some people would like run away from them and try to have more fun and ignore them, and then sometimes people are spending too much time with them, right?
Yeah.
So I think both maybe has a part to play.
Yeah, and I've been on both ends of that, and I think finding that middle ground is key.
And so you went from where you were, and then you kind of like found through a friend your way into doing some crafting, and you started with, tell us about how that happened.
I just remember I sat down and I had my journal out, and I literally just wrote down a bunch of words, like what did I want my life to look like and what did I want to do. And I ended up writing a really long list of hobbies that I wanted to try. I wanted to try doing jigsaw puzzles and knitting, which I did try and I'm really, really bad at, so I'm not going to try that again. One of them was pottery, just because I think just from being on social media, you see people like making things out of clay and like doing pottery. And I was like, hey, that looks kind of fun. And then I shared that list with one of my friends, and she said, oh, I've got clay at home, why don't we do a pottery night? And I thought, that sounds great. And I went to her house, and she got out this huge bag of clay, and she was making like a fairy house, this huge sculpture. And I got the clay in front of me, and I was like, I have no idea what to do. Like, I literally don't know what to do. And I think I made like a little crab at first, but it just sort of disintegrated. And then I went online, just Googled like air dry clay, what to do, and I made a little cactus ring holder. From there, I kind of abandoned everything else on the list. It was like 2 pages long of different hobbies and different activities. Some of them I did, most of them I didn't get round to because I'd sort of found the hobby that like I really wanted to do. It changed my daily routine, which then goes on to sort of just changing your life because you just have something to focus towards, which isn't just work or just sort of getting through the day.
And this?
Yeah, that's the guy. He's broken.
But this was your first ever?
That was the first thing I ever made out of clay. It's not the best, but
He's broken, but he's been fixed.
He's been fixed. I super glued him back together.
So your friend introduces you to air dry clay for the first time, and then you fall in love with it.
I fall in love with it.
And so what happens next? What does the next few weeks and months look like for you?
So I stayed over at her house that night because we were making things out of clay till like 1 a.m. On my way home, I stopped off at a shop and bought my own clay, and then I made this, which is just a little pot with olives in it. The second thing I ever made out of clay. I made something every day for probably about 6 months. So I got home, I started making things. I was waking up before work to like paint stuff from the night before. I was researching online, like best air dry clays to use, best paints to use, best varnishes, like everything. I was looking up tutorials. I was following other artists. I was completely obsessed with it. Like it filled up so much time. That's the best way of putting it. Just literally the next 5 or 6 months, I was completely like obsessed with making things from clay. And I got a little bit better at it, and I started posting on social media the things that I was making, and people liked them, and I started making gifts for friends and family, and just everything I made, like it just gave me this sense of like fulfillment, and it was great. And it wasn't just like a thing to replace the time when I was away from the pub, because I would literally like, I just cared about it, if that makes sense. I found something that like I realised I loved and I wanted to get better at and I wanted to work at, and I also wanted to share with other people. Yeah, just completely fell in love with it.
How did you feel when you first started using the clay? Like, how does it make you feel? Why was it so like rewarding for you?
Do you know, it was because I didn't know what I was doing. Like starting off with literally a block of clay and knowing that it could be anything. Like, and then I think because it's, I don't know, like there are so many possibilities with it that it's like my brain just hyper focuses on that in the moment. Like I all I can think about is like, what can this become? What shape do I need it to be? Where can this go? How big can it go? And it's like a way of completely switching off. Also doing things with your hands can literally like really help your mental health. Just like, I don't know, like the movement of it. I think another thing was after the first couple of times, I could see the progress that I was making. It wasn't just these little cactuses and these little olive jars that, I mean, it's okay, but I wasn't in love with it. But when I started making things and getting better, and people would come over and point at something and be like, oh, where did you get that? And I'd get to say, oh, I made that. And then people were requesting things, like my sister wanted like a key bowl for her flat. And it's not even just the activities themselves, it's like the whole community around it and like the excitement of making things and showing them to new people. I guess I'd share things on social media and people would ask me for a tutorial and people would ask me how I made that. That felt so great that I was then able to share this thing that I love so much with other people. And also just, I like the stuff that I make as well. Like the fact that I could start off with a block of clay and then turn it into something that I love and I want to keep in my house forever. It is just a nice feeling. It feels good.
Creating, right?
Yeah, creating is there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like the story behind Potted itself was like I'm kind of similar to you in a sense that I feel like I'm a creative person, and I didn't feel like I was doing enough creative stuff. You know, my lifestyle wasn't. I didn't have the hobbies and the habits just like you, and so now I have a creative business. It's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like as soon as I used air dry clay for the first time, it was a similar feeling. It was just like, wow, like,
yeah,
I don't know, like it's a blank canvas, not too blank though.
Yeah.
Few guys, you know what I mean? Sometimes a blank canvas is the worst thing. Too much freedom. And yeah, like it's you get that flow state working with your hands, like you say.
Yeah, flow state.
Which is really special.
Completely.
I like what you said also about how it's something that's nice for yourself to do for yourself, and you feel good.
Yeah.
But there was another thing you mentioned which I thought was really nice, which is you're then other people are kind of requesting things from you that they want.
Yeah.
Or you're making stuff to give away to people as gifts. And I think there's something really powerful in that which we don't think about in terms of like the general mental health picture, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but people say, if you can't make yourself happy, try making someone else happy.
I like that.
And
yeah.
it's like a really surefire way to generate positive feelings in yourself, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And like sharing things with other people, like in terms of making something out of clay and giving it to someone as a gift, but also even just sharing something on social media and tagging someone being like, oh, I made this piece because it so-and-so inspired me. Yeah, spreading positivity with other people is so good for you, like inside.
I like also that fact because, you know, like it's a solitary hobby. It can be. It doesn't have to be, right? You can do it in a group as well with friends or whatever. But for some people, I think for you, it's often like something you do on your own.
Yeah.
But I like the way you've also made it something that is shared with everybody else, whether it's social media or like, you know, in person giving stuff. So it doesn't become an isolation thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You kind of get the best of both worlds, which is nice.
Yeah, and it just depends what mood I'm in. A lot of the time I am, like, I just need some time by myself and I need some time on my own. I also do these things called crafternoons with my friends where like everyone will just come over, and not everyone works with clay. Some people will paint, some people will draw. I think it's like a term that like teachers use for children called adjacent play. Where it's literally like you can do your own activity, but just doing it around other people who are doing their own activities is such a great way to connect with people. I find that really, really fun. And yeah, it's such a great environment because everyone's just looking at each other's work and complimenting each other, and it's just like a breeding ground for positivity. For sure.
I love that, adjacent play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a new one. I've not heard of this before.
I love it. I just honestly, even, you know, like sometimes my boyfriend will be sat there playing video games and I'll be sat there making something, and it's like, you know, when you do see two kids that are together on a play date and they don't want to do the same thing, but they're still together and they're still enjoying their own separate things, but together. Yeah. And yeah, I think adults should do it too.
It really, honestly should. I love that concept. It's like doing something alone together.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Because you don't have to have like shared hobbies. You don't have to have things like directly in common with your friends. But it doesn't mean you don't have to do them with your friends.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is the thing, again, like literally the origin story of Pott'd was me and my girlfriend at the time sitting on two sofas, watching the TV. Well, no, the TV was on, but we were watching our phones.
Yeah.
She's on her phone, I'm on my phone, TV's on the background. And it's because I think like a lot of couples fall into this is where like after work time, you want to spend time with your partner, but like doing what? People don't really know what to do.
Exactly.
And if you're lucky, you might be cooking. And if you're unlucky, or like most people, you end up watching TV.
Yeah.
And then it's actually not the best thing over and over again.
No.
And that's literally when I made a decision, like we're not going to keep doing this. We're going to do something creative.
Yeah.
And we tried all the arts and crafts. And like you, we really sucked at some of them. Like just got rid of those. Yeah. But the clay is the one that stuck.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, maybe on that, I just think like, is there something specific about working with clay, or do you think there's any other activities that get a similar result for you? Is there anything else close, or is there something about like the actual digging fingers into the clay?
Yeah, nothing is close. Another thing, going back to like when I said I was a creative kid, I was also a really messy kid. I would make things out of mud, like literally, like I'd go into like the garden and make things out of mud, and clay is kind of the same thing. It really does like reawaken my inner child when I'm working with it. And I think as well, it's really intuitive. I also like painting, and I like drawing and illustrating and making other things with art, but nothing feels as like intuitive as clay, because I can have something in my head and my hands can like push it into place and make it exist. It's not going to come out 100% perfect, but you can get really close with clay, I think.
Yeah, I have seen your painting and your illustrating and stuff, and like, should make it clear to everybody that is pretty good.
Thanks.
Like, I actually think it's really good. Kind of, I think it would be cool if you started like maybe doing more of it on your pieces. Maybe combine the two things together.
That is actually something I have in the works. Yeah, it's something that I've seen some other people do, and I'm excited to start it. But yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I know I shouldn't be, because arts and crafts is not about perfectionism, but I'm going to work towards it for sure.
Can we have a piece of art as well?
Yes. Of course.
Because like can see where it's going to go.
Yes, I'd love to.
Amazing. What are you up to now then? Because I know that you've got into working with clay and pottery as a hobby, as a habit, something for yourself, and now you've kind of got some ideas that you want to take forwards and get more into. Like, so what are you kind of working on now? Like, what's your relationship with clay and pottery now?
I started posting a lot about it on social media, and I kind of I've been working on growing this community, and some people have reached out to me and said that, you know, they struggled with their mental health, and after I suggested it, they started making things from clay, and it's really helped them. And I've even seen a couple of people have gone on to like start their own businesses from that. I mean, I want in the future to take that a bit further, and I do have this online community of people where we create together, but I want to make that accessible to people in person. One thing I've started doing is running these sort of free or affordable air dry clay classes. I've been doing like pinch pots, and the last workshop I did was a Star Wars themed workshop. I'm not a massive Star Wars fan myself, but it was really fun. We made these like Yoda style pots. And it's great as well because anyone gets involved. Like, you have families walking past and the children want to join in, and then you have adults that book onto the class, and it really is something for everyone. People do it with their friends, people come alone and then meet other people. I would love to be able to do more things like that. I would love to be able to get some kind of space where we can host air dry clay workshops for people that don't cost a lot of money, that people that just need a space. You can obviously do air dry, I mean, as you guys know, you can do air dry clay at home, you can make pottery at home, but I really like the whole community side of it. So I would love to be able to host something where people that are struggling with their mental health can come, play with things, absolutely no sort of pressure. There's no like end goal. You don't have to come out of it with like a perfect sculpture. Just make something fun, make something that you enjoy. I'd love to be able to do things like that. And then another thing that's come out of this love of clay is I've gotten into ceramics as well. So I have started volunteering at a pottery studio in Hammersmith called the Clay Garden, and I've been learning sort of bit by bit. There is quite a big difference between air dry clay pottery and then ceramics pottery. So I'm learning a lot about that, and I'm spending a lot of time in the studio with some other creative people, doing it all outside of work as well. So I still work my marketing 9 to 5, and I think that's important as well. Like, a lot of people start doing creative things and decide, okay, this needs to be like my job. I can't do this just for fun. I need to make it a business. But actually, making art and doing creative things can just be a hobby or a side hustle or something like that. Like, you can just use it to enrich your life. It doesn't have to be everything, you know? So
don't do what I did.
You can do what you did because it's worked out very well for you, but yeah.
You don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. Like, when it becomes a job or a business, sometimes, not for everybody, but you have to keep an eye out. Like, if you're putting pressure on yourself,
yeah,
and then the thing that you did that was fun,
yeah,
stops being fun.
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of the stuff that you're saying today is the theme that I'm picking up from a lot of it is just having a self-awareness and a self-reflection.
Yeah.
Because it's not all, you can't say from the outside necessarily like, do this as a hobby, do this as a business, drink less, drink more, socialize more, stay at home. You can't prescribe it, right? It's up to each person to work out where they're at with it, right?
Yeah, and different people have completely different like abilities. I opened an online shop and I made things out of air dry clay and I was selling them and I was doing commissions. And very quickly I was like, this isn't what I want to do actually, because I didn't find it fun, and it became more pressure because I wasn't just making things for the fun of it, I was making things for money. And luckily I had that sort of like self-awareness to be like, this is so not the reason I started doing this. So I was able to stop that. There's so much pressure, I think, like in this day and age, like everyone on social media, like everyone wants to become an influencer or a business owner or a content creator, or have a side hustle, but you don't have to. You can just literally do things for the fun of them. You don't have to be the best at pottery. You don't have to be making sales. You can literally just do it and post your little pictures and have fun, and that is just as worthy as anything else.
Yeah, totally agreed. Yeah, I love that idea. Which of these pieces is the most meaningful to you, do you think?
This one here is my favorite, because this was one of the first things I made from air dry clay that I was like, okay, that's turned out exactly how I want it to look, and I really love it. And this kind of set off this whole different like collection of pots that I made. So I made this and I made 3 other like similar pots. I call them the body pots. And there's a lot of art out there that depicts women's bodies, but most of the time they're sort of the standard like hourglass figure, that kind of thing. But I just made like a range of them, all different shapes, sizes, colours, different sort of like features. Like some of them had mastectomy, some of them had like colostomy bags, things like that. So like I wanted to make a more inclusive range of like art of women's bodies. So that just kind of set me off. This piece was one that I think I made that, and then I was like, do you know, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life because I really, really love making things from clay. And then this little piece here, as I said, I did start a business, and the logo I made for my business was this sort of like blob of clay with these 2, they can either be eyes or boobs, like a body pot. This I actually made out of potted clay because you guys were actually really kind and sent me some so that I can do my TikTok lives. So this is like a little logo sort of trinket tray for me, and I was going to sell it, but I decided not to because I wanted to keep it for myself.
Love that. Really cool. You also, we haven't spoken about this, but I know that you're also kind of like have a dream, which is to have your own space or work with a space, as you were saying, to like allow people to come for free or really low cost.
Yeah.
I guess it's like maybe we can have an open request of anybody's watching or listening.
Yes.
If they've got, you know, a space that they know of that would want to work with you on this project.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Like, just the space is all I need. Like, we have the clay, we have the materials. I have the passion, and I would help people out. If I could make it affordable for people, because it is such a helpful thing and it's so much fun, and it annoys me so much when people have to pay just to do something that I know would really, really help them. So yeah, that would be amazing.
Cool, yeah, so anyone who is listening or watching us, any leads on Pottery Studios, Nadine would like to hear from you. And like at Pott'd, we're gonna help as well with whatever you need, you know, like materials, clay, whatever time we'll be putting in as well to try and make this happen, because I think it's really cool. And like a great project. So that's lovely. Thank you for sharing with us. Nadine, if people want to follow a bit more of your story, it's Justini on Instagram and TikTok, both. And TikTok, yeah. Justini, that's why I thought her name was Justine for ages, but it's not, it's Nadine. Justini. If you want to like contact Nadine or like help out with her project or anything, best way to contact through Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah? But Nadine, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again. Like, I really mean it for being so open and honest and vulnerable with us. I know for a fact that it is that stuff that helps other people. So fingers crossed, like what we've been talking about today will actually help someone who's maybe going through something a little bit difficult as well. So a huge thank you from me and the Potter team for doing that with us, and it's been a real pleasure, and you're very inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Are you crazy about air dry clay?
That's so uncool.
Wait, stop. Are you crazy about air dry clay? Then press subscribe.